Hello everybody, this is Refresh, and I am here to bring you a battle between these two Dominaria Planeswalker decks and the Defeat a God Challenge deck from Journeys and Xenagos. On the left here we have Chandra, and the right here we have Terefi, and we will be playing with the following hero cards. The first one is the Harvester. It says tap, draw a card, then discard a card. The Vanquisher, which says your starting hand size is increased by 1, your maximum hand size is increased by 1. And the Explorer, which says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Because I only have one copy of each of these cards, we're going to be applying them to both decks simultaneously. We'll be playing first on normal difficulty with 3 Rollicking Throngs, and we'll start with 8 cards apiece. Chandra draws a Mountain, a Forest, 2 Timber Gorges, a Pierce the Sky, 2 Forests, and a Crozen Druid. This is too many lands for the very start of the game, so we're going to go ahead and mulligan this away, and then redraw back up to 8 because this is multiplayer. Alright, we have a Forest, a Mountain, Chandra, Bolt, Pyromancer, Mountain, Shivan Fire, 2 more Mountains, and a Gilded Lotus. This is not really much greater because we don't have that much more to do, but we're going to keep this because if we can get up to playing a Gilded Lotus and Chandra Pyromancer, I think we can get there, especially with the Harvester helping us to draw into what we need. Teferi has a Plains, an Island, Temporal Machinations, Juggernaut, Befuddle, Gideon's Reproach, and Meandering River. This is not the best set of cards, but we have things that we can do. The Temporal Machinations is very good against these kinds of decks, so we will keep this hand as well and hope we can mulligan into what we need. Alright, for turn 1 we'll play a Forest and a Mountain over here, and we'll play a Meandering River tapped and an Island over here. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos, who will cast the top 2 cards. The first card is Xenagos' Strike. It deals 4 damage to each player. There are 2 players, so we'll be taking at least 8 damage. And we'll also cast a Xenagos' Scorn, as Xenagos Ascended gains trample until end of turn and attacks this turn if able. So we'll be taking 8 damage, along with Xenagos attacking for another 6 damage for 14 damage, taking us to 6 life. Then at the end of the turn we'll use the Harvester. Chandra will draw a Crozen Druid, and will discard Chandra Bolt Pyromancer. Teferi will draw a Temporal Machinations, and will discard Befuddle, and then we'll untap, and then we'll draw. Chandra draws a Forest, and will play a Mountain and a Forest. Teferi draws a Plains, and will play an Island and a Plains. Teferi will tap these, and then play a Juggernaut, while Chandra will tap these 3 and play a Crozen Druid. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap and cast the top 2 cards. The first one being a Ecstatic Piper. When Ecstatic Piper enters the battlefield, Xenagos Ascended attacks this turn if able. And then we'll also play another card, which is Impulsive Return. Return 2 cards named Ecstatic Piper from Xenagos' graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of combat this turn, Impulsive Return deals damage to each player equal to the number of revelers on the battlefield. So, before combat begins, because we want to take the minimum amount of damage possible, we'll go ahead and tap this Mountain and cast Shivan Fire on the Ecstatic Piper, killing it and getting us 4 life, taking us back up to 10. And then we're going to be taking damage equal to the number of revelers on the battlefield, which is 3, plus another 3, which is 6 damage, taking us up to 4 at the beginning of combat. Xenagos is going to attack. We will block him with the Crozen Druid, and we will lose the Crozen Druid, and then it'll be the end of the turn. We'll go ahead and use the Harvester. Chandra will draw a Timber Gorge, and will discard the Timber Gorge. Teferi will draw a Plains, and will discard the Gideon's Reproach, and then we will untap. We'll draw. Chandra draws a Llanowar Elves, and Teferi draws a Teferi Sentinel. We'll play both of the Plains over here, and we will play both of the Mountains over here. We'll tap 5 mana and play the Gilded Lotus, and we'll tap the remaining Force to play the Llanowar Elves as chump blocker. And then we will tap out over here and play the Teferi's Sentinel. The Juggernaut must attack this turn, so it will attack and kill one of the Rollicking Throng. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap, and then Xenagos will cast the top 2 cards, the first one being an Ecstatic Piper, which causes Xenagos to attack this turn, and the second one being another Ecstatic Piper, which causes Xenagos to attack this turn. Xenagos will chump block with the Llanowar Elves, and then we will end the turn. We'll untap. We'll draw. Chandra draws a forest. Teferi draws an island. We will play the island, and then we must attack. So we will attack with the Juggernaut into an Ecstatic Piper, killing it, getting us 2 life apiece, taking us to 8. And then we will cast Temporal Machinations, returning another Ecstatic Piper to Xenagos' hands. It will go over here. We'll gain another 4 life, taking us all the way back up to 12. We'll draw a card off of that ability, which will be Teferi Time Bender. And then we will go ahead and cast this one more time to return a Rollicking Throng, returning that to Teferi's hand, to Xenagos' hand, and then we'll draw a card as well. It's an Aether Glider. We can't cast that right now, but we are in a bit of a odd place. We will pass the turn to Xenagos. We'll cast the top 2 cards after untapping. The first card is a Ferrous-Band Revelers. It's a 4/4, and when it dies, we will draw a card each, and also an Ecstatic Piper, which causes Xenagos to attack again. This time, we are going to take the hit, and then go down to 6. At the end of the turn, we're going to use the Harvester. Chandra will draw a Timber Gorge and discard the Timber Gorge. Teferi will draw an Aether Glider and will discard an Aether Glider. And then we will untap. We will draw. Chandra draws a Mountain. Teferi draws... Let's finish untapping. Teferi draws a Relic Runner. We will use the Harvester right now. Chandra will draw a Chandra's Outburst, which we will then discard the Mountain for. And Teferi will draw an Island, which we will discard an Aether Glider for. And then we will play the island. We will tap out over here. Teferi Time Bender has 3 abilities. The first one being untapped up to 1 target artifact or creature, and then -3 to gain 2 life and draw 2 cards, and -9 to take an extra turn after this one. However, as long as you control a Teferi Planeswalker, Teferi Sentinel gets +4/+0, making it a 6/6. So what we're going to do first is we're going to play the forest here. We're going to tap 5 mana over here and cast Chandra's Outburst, which deals 4 damage to target player or Planeswalker. Because there is no proper player, we're going to do 4 damage to the player or Planeswalker, which is going to redirect and nail this Ferrous-Band Revelers, which will kill it, getting us a card each, a forest and a plains. I guess we're going to hold on to these as draw and discard fodder. However, we will look through the deck and get Chandra over here. Chandra was in the graveyard, so we'll go ahead and take her to our hand. And then, you know what? We can actually play this forest and then tap the forest, the mountain, and the Gilded Lotus for 6 mana to play Chandra. She'll come onto the battlefield with 5 loyalty, and she has 3 abilities. The first one being +1 to add 2 reds, and then Chandra Bolt, Pyromancer, deals 2 damage to target player. Also -3 for it to deal 3 damage to target creature or Planeswalker, and -7 to deal 10 damage to target player. And each creature and Planeswalker they control. We'll start with 5, and 5 over here. Step number 1, we're going to go ahead and attack with both the Juggernaut and the Teferi Sentinel, and that will kill off both of these creatures, giving us 4 life, taking us back up to 10. And then we'll use Teferi's Plus ability to go up to 7 loyalty and then untap both of these. And then we will use Chandra's Plus ability to go up to 6 and deal 2 damage to target player, which gets redirected to Xenagos, but it is unable to kill Xenagos. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap and then cast the top 2 cards. The first one being a Dance of Flame. Whenever a Reveler attacks, Dance of Flame deals 1 damage to each player. The second one being a Ferrous-Band Revelers again. Xenagos does not attack this turn, and we'll go back to our turn. We'll untap. We forgot to shuffle the deck, so we'll go ahead and do that before we draw. We'll draw. Chandra draws a forest, and Teferi draws a Teferi Sentinel. So the Juggernaut is going to attack the Ferrous-Band Revelers, killing it, and drawing us a card each. Chandra draws a Chandra's Outburst, and Teferi draws a Plains. We will also lose Juggernaut in that exchange, and then on our second main phase. We will tap out 5 here and play a Teferi Sentinel. And we will also tap 2 to go ahead and take a Relic Runner into the battlefield. And then we will minus Teferi, -3 to go down to 4 loyalty. And we will gain 2 life to go up to 12 and draw 2 cards. Teferi will draw a Tetsuka Umezawa Fugitive and an island. We have some mana, so we'll go ahead and play the plains and play the island. Chandra will tap up 1 again and deal 2 damage to Xenagos Ascended. And then we're going to spend 5 mana to do Chandra's Outburst to do 4 more damage to Xenagos Ascended, finishing him off and giving the win to the Planeswalker decks. We will be right back for Game 2 on Hard Mode. We are back for Hard Mode. We have 4 Rollicking Throngs up there. We'll go ahead and draw 8 cards apiece and hope that we don't die too fast. Chandra draws a Pyromantic Pilgrim, Timber Gorge, Crozen Druid, Fight with Fire, Elfin Druid, Mountain, Mountain, and Mountain. It's not ideal, but it does seem like it will work, so we'll go ahead and keep this hand. Teferi draws in Plains, Daring Archaeologist, Gideon's Reproach, Sparring Construct, Island, Aether Glider, Plains, and Befuddle. Again, this is not amazing, but I think there is enough to start with, so we'll go ahead and keep this hand as well. Turn 1, we'll play a Timber Gorge tapped and a Mountain. And then over here we'll play an island and a plains. We'll tap the island and play a Sparring Construct. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos is going to cast the top 2 cards. The first one being an Ecstatic Piper, which causes him to attack this turn. And the second one being a Ferrous-Bound Revelers, which is a 4/4. Xenagos is going to go on the attack. We're not going to chump just yet. We'll go ahead and take 6 and go to 14. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester, and we will draw a Fire Elemental over here, and we will discard the Pyromantic Pilgrim. And then over here, we will draw a Plains, and we will discard the Aether Glider. And then we'll untap. We'll draw. Chandra will draw a Forest over here. And Teferi will draw a Plains over here. We'll go ahead and play 2 more Plains. And we'll play a Mountain and a Forest over here. Go ahead and play the Crozen Druid over here. And we'll play the Daring Archaeologist over here. And when it enters the battlefield, we'll return a target artifact card from the graveyard to our hand, which will be the Aether Glider. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos, who's going to cast the top 2 cards after untapping. The top card is Impulsive Charge. At the beginning of combat this turn, all Revelers gain haste until end of turn attack this combat if able. The second card is an Ecstatic Piper, which means that Xenagos is also attacking. This is pretty bad. Alright, we're going to be attacked by everybody. We're going to block Xenagos with the Sparring Construct. We're going to block each of the Ecstatic Pipers with these 2 cards. That will kill the Sparring Construct, which will get chumped, and it will kill both of the Ecstatic Pipers, getting us 8 life total, but we're also going to lose 8 life from the remaining attackers, leaving us exactly at 14. We're going to +1/+1 counter, and it's going to go on to the Daring Archaeologist because of the Sparring Construct's ability, and then that is the end of Xenagos' turn. At the end of the turn, we're going to use the Harvester, and Chandra will draw a Gaia's Protector, and will immediately discard the Gaia's Protector. And Teferi will draw a Plain, and then we'll discard the Befuddle, and then we'll untap, and then we'll draw. Chandra is going to draw a Fire Elemental. Teferi is going to draw a Plains. We will play both of the Plains, and then we will tap 3 of the Plains for an Aether Glider when it enters the battlefield. Whenever you cast a historic spell, we're going to put another counter on Daring Archaeologist, making it a 5/5. And then we're going to play the Mountain over here. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to attack the Ferrous-Bound Revelers with the Daring Archaeologist, killing it. And we'll draw a card each. Chandra draws a Primordial Worm, and Teferi draws a Island. And then Chandra is going to tap 5 mana and play a Fire Elemental. And we will hope we don't die on this next turn. We'll pass the turn to Xenagos, who will untap his minions and himself. And then we'll cast the top 2 cards. The first one being Ripped to Pieces. At the beginning of combat this turn, each Reveler deals 1 damage to each player and each creature those player controls. So we're going to be doing 4 damage to every creature and 8 damage to us. We'll also cast the Impulsive Return. Return 2 cards named Ecstatic Piper from Xenagos' graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of combat this turn, Impulsive Return deals damage to each player equal to the number of Revelers on the battlefield. We're going to be taking 24 damage and then 6 damage to each creature, and Xenagos is going to attack this turn. So let's go ahead and resolve the pre-combat abilities, which includes taking 6 damage times 2 from Rip to Pieces, and that will take us to 2 life, and then 6 damage to each of our creatures, killing everything. And then we're going to take another 12 damage from Impulsive Return, killing us. And that will end us before Xenagos even gets a chance to attack in the combat step. So that was a pretty brutal game. We were on the back foot from the very beginning and really couldn't recover, and also some of the most brutal cards in the entire Xenagos deck came at us. And I don't even know if there is a constructed deck that would be able to resist. Perhaps in the future I will take some constructed decks up against this deck and see if it can handle turns like that. But let me know what you thought about the games in the comments below. If I made any rules or play errors, also let me know so that I can get better in the future. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.